Dear friends, fellow attendees, and esteemed guests of the Pan IIT World of Technology 2021 Summit, welcome to the Electric Vehicles and Fuel Cell session. Battery electric vehicles are ahead in the market today, but many experts believe that hydrogen fuel cell vehicles have their place in the future of mobility. To take us through such interesting discussions, we have Mr. Som Kapoor, who is the Automotive Future of Mobility Lead at EY. Our moderator for today's session is a specialist who has been engaged with automotive C-suite for over past 2 decades. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Som Kapoor.
Thank you. Thank you, Vidyut. Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. What we're going to do over the next half an hour, 45 minutes is I'm only going to be passing the ball around. That's my job for the next 45 minutes or so. We have a pretty esteemed panel. I won't introduce anybody either. I'll ask them a question and they can start by introducing themselves and then figuring out how to take this forward. The only thing I'm going to mention upfront is I'm going to get Professor Junjunwala in the last of the four, because that way I want to make sure that all three, four of them have an equal stage opportunity to upstage each other till the time he comes and takes it on and pulls everybody else off. But good afternoon, everybody. We have Dr. Amitabh Saran. I've met him very recently, but when I looked at his cred pack of NASA, etc., I thought it'd be a very interesting candidate to give you some perspective. But I have a slightly different perspective. I'm going to pull you back from NASA to India. I'd like to start with you to say that how do you believe EVs could be made in India, made for India, made by Indians, both on the OEM and the OES side? Dr. Saran, ball's in your court.
Thank you, Som. Hi, everyone. To answer your question, Som, it's not just a question of belief. I think it's already happening. I think we've had that trader mentality a little bit in the past, but over the last couple of years, I have seen a huge shift where people are now looking at doing this in-house. I think the realization that India's needs are very differentiated. It's not like any other place anywhere in the world. Anything that is considered abuse anywhere else is a day-to-day scenario in this country, and hence the needs for our geography, which include components, the vehicles themselves, the financing models, the service, the spares, all that is something that has to be built by us for our geography. And I think that's something that at least my company has been doing. And I know that the ecosystem has been gearing up for that, not just the educational institutions where R&D is actually done, but also in the form of startups. Incumbents will be slow, but it's the startups that disrupt, not just in the automobile space, but I think in general, as far as any industry is concerned. So that's my perspective. I think it's already happening. We have to be cognizant of India's needs. And once we do that, I think we have a very, very strong ecosystem to build. Civilization. Commercial vehicles will probably be the first to adopt electrification, because there it makes most sense. I think we have to be cognizant that India is a country of itna deti hai. So everyone looks at that. If it doesn't make sense, then carry on that message of it's good for the environment, we should all adopt EVs. Something we've tried that for 2 decades now. I think now the change is beginning to happen, because we are targeting those specific areas where EVs make sense. Since you mentioned a brief background, I run a company called Propulsion Labs. We founded this back in 2013 with the express intent of making components, drivetrains specifically for India. So motors, controllers, DC-DC, harnesses, display clusters, gearboxes, all that. And then we graduated to actually making vehicles ground up for India's differentiated needs, starting with last mile transport, and within that, three-wheel logistic vehicles. So that's something that we've been doing. That's on the background as far as Altigreen is concerned. I have a PhD in computer science, worked with NASA, like you said, Hewlett Packard, a couple of startups in the past, and then started Altigreen in 2013.
Thank you. Thanks, Amitabh. I mean, I picked up the headline there is you're going to get all the startups going to disrupt the EVO ecosystem, and that's where you got to place your money in, right? I'm going to come to Anuj later on the money, where he's raising it from and for whom. But SVS, I'm going to get you into trouble, right? Professor Jay is on the call over here, and I'm going to ask you a specific question. Do you think swapping is going to be more successful, or do you think charging is going to be more successful? So SVS is Shailesh Vikram Singh. He's just popularly known as SVS.
Yeah. I thanks.
Let me throw you in the deep end right up.
Yeah. Thanks, Om. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think globally people are debating about swapping and charging, and I think the discussion is probably over. I think we are still debating. I don't know why. So if you have to see the use case, so for the retail user, who, like say, look at two-wheelers, right? People hardly do more than 30, 40 kilometers a day. These batteries today do 120 to 180 kilometers. So there is no need for a swapping because the need is not so high, right? We are charging every day, charging on the go, takes care of that. So on a commercial, on a what you call a consumer side, I do not see any even need for that because your use case is very low. Nobody is riding in their two-wheelers from Mysore to Bangalore or somewhere else. On a commercial side, the loaders, which are generally large ones, they generally have the space and capacity to do much larger batteries. So by nature, they can easily do 120, 140 kilometers. And given India's speed, which is generally every city is not more than 40 kilometers per hour. I think no Indian city has a speed of more than 40 kilometers per hour, right? One vehicle can easily do whole day or just one single charge. Is there really there's a need there? So in a large commercial vehicle, large retail consumer, I do not see any need. The only space where there can be some space for swapping is probably the e-rickshaw market for consumer side. But again, look at the challenges. The challenges are technical as well as financial. For the financial, you have to always have 30% more capacity, even if you are very heavily optimized. At a 30%, somebody has to pay for it, right? The financing of the vehicle itself is a nightmare. Getting financing of the battery, tracking it, theft, insurance, everything is another kind of nightmare. Then because you want to do swapping, you always were forced to reduce the battery size. You want to a 30 kilowatt battery, 30 battery at max, right? Otherwise, become you need what you call machines to manage swapping. Now, 30 battery, that means you are swapping almost 30 kilometers. Again, is a very painful. And second problem is the kind of capacity you need. Think of it, if you are in Bangalore and you want to do swapping. So ensure swapping is not that you only do in Whitefield. You have to start from Whitefield, go to Ulsur, then go to Yelahanka and do everywhere, right? So to start a project, you need minimum 100 crores to do a proper swapping. Otherwise, it's more of a poetry. So it doesn't work. Then if you want to combine multiple batteries, then, you have potholes, this, that, and the BMS gets disaligned and you have multiple batteries in one BMS. The BMS play become very complicated. We have seen that the moment there is a little bit of disbalance between the multiple batteries, current and voltage, the BMS just shut down. And then you have to really drag down the battery. So technical challenges, financial challenges, use case, nothing exists. The only thing which is working, the swapping is working is Gogoro. Great example, but Taiwan is a very small country, very nice roads, a very traceable population. In India, the vehicle battery, everything just disappear. So overall, given scenarios, I think swapping might be use case for the three-wheeler, but in a larger scheme or the software scheme, I do not see any hope for it.
Thanks, SVS. I think this is going to go interesting now. So I wanted to introduce Professor J right at the last, but sorry, sir, I can't do that. Professor Junjunwala, I know how you feel about it personally because of what we do, but just your initial 5-minute thoughts on that subject.
I would have preferred Anuj to speak before me, but
I know.
Let me speak. See, I've been associated with this almost 5. I mean, I was here in Delhi trying to drive the electric vehicle policy and electric vehicle industry. We, by the way, started by actually recognizing that if you are going to import every component, we are not going to go anywhere. We have to make every component in the country. In fact, my slogan is that we have to beat China in price, but the quality has to be superior. So higher in quality, equal to Chinese prices. Because Chinese prices is capturing the market. It is the prices that are capturing. Quality is not the right. Our quality has to be much more superior and suited to our needs. So, but price, I mean, you can't ask a e-rickshaw for the manufacturer to kind of pay higher prices. So we have to, just like Amitabh and I didn't know about Amitabh, but the whether it's motors for e-rickshaw, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, a little larger vehicle for goods, for car, at least for all these things. Because for these, all the way from e-rickshaw to small goods vehicle, I think the business model already exists. With swapping or without swapping, one can get into debate on that, and I don't want to get into let the market decide. Why are we sort of saying this will work, that will not work? I mean, in some things I see something works, somebody makes something else work. But every component has to be made. So we have to make motors and controller which are superior to the Chinese motor. And fortunately, at IIT Madras Research Park, there are companies which are actually making them now. And it's getting into manufacturing fairly soon. We're making PMSM motors and controllers. Same price, but superior. In terms of temperature, they can handle higher temperature. They have higher efficiency and things like that. Then let's look at the battery. Again, the most important aspect of the battery is they must work at 50 degrees centigrade, 48 degrees centigrade. And whether again charging, swapping, we have to really look at that. And of different sizes. So for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and the goods vehicle, I don't see today any difficulty. Similarly, the VCUs, the chargers, no big deal on two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and goods vehicle, small goods vehicle charger. And the DC-DC converters, the VCU and all that. These are all components that has to be made in India. Today, we still get 1.5 million e-rickshaws in the country. That's where the volume is. And almost every motor, controller, a battery, everything is imported. In next couple of years, we need to completely change that. And two-wheeler will become very, very large because that's the first thing that already is cost competitive, and it can very easily go there. And goods vehicle, whether in a shared mode or a individual mode. So these are going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years. The four-wheeler buses, on buses, there is a lot of push for the government, but I do see that they still need subsidy. They will still be driven by subsidy. Otherwise, I think it will take a few more years. By around maybe 24, 25, we'll see them starting to become possible on their own. As far as I'm concerned, two-wheeler, three-wheeler has happened. Let different kind of vehicles be made. I will welcome 25 companies making the vehicles. Let tens of companies make every component. But tell you one thing. For example, motor and controller. Controller, you would make 100,000 controller, you cannot beat Chinese prices.
Wow.
You need to make 100,000 controller.
That's a lot.
Motor, you can make 25,000. Because motors are mechanical component. The volume from 25,000 to 100,000, you do get certain price advantage, but not significant. But controller is electronics. The electronics, you don't get 100,000. You don't get the kind of prices that you are wanting. And in today's market, it is even worse. Similarly, battery, you won't get sell prices unless you make close to 100,000, maybe 50,000 to 100,000. The BMS components, you won't get it right. Then the BMS has to work at 50 degrees centigrade. Let me point out, we very often talk about BMS, but our thermal design of a battery and a mechanical design of a battery is far more important than even the BMS. BMS is, of course, very important from safety point of view and from balancing point of view. So I think time has come. All these components are now starting to be made in India. I'm very happy to see Amitabh making it. I like to get more details of it. And I think next 3 to 4 years we'll get there. In the meantime, four-wheelers and buses will start coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. That was very interesting. I'm actually going to put Anuj on the spot here again. Anuj, you seem to be the money man in this group. you're raising millions of dollars of money for different companies. And somebody who likes to chase money, because as a consultant, wherever there's big money flowing is where is the direction we try and follow. So just a very quick question and a perspective from you. What are the low hanging fruits in the overall EV space where you think a lot of money is flowing? And the second perspective to this is, what is really stopping us from electrifying our mobility ecosystem? Any thought?
Thanks,
Any
thanks,
thoughts on that?
thanks a lot, Pan ID. Thanks a lot, Som, for this opportunity. Hello, friends. My name is Anuj Kuplani, and I am from the 2001 IIT Delhi batch. And I'm with the World Auto Forum. And some time back, we started WAF Ventures, to which Som has referred to the raising funds. So yes, we help companies, startups raise funds. We also help them in M&A activities, specifically in this domain, in EV, FCV, and so forth, urban air mobility. So that's a very good question, Som, that what are the low-hanging fruits? Because, it's the low-hanging fruits which get picked the first.
Correct.
So the low-hanging fruits in the EV ecosystem, and no prizes for guessing, are the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler. And there is huge focus and thrust from the government on public transportation. But if you see statistically, India is one of those exceptional countries where 66% of the petrol is consumed by two-wheelers. All right, it's a huge burden on the forex, and if that portion can be electrified, it can be a huge leverage, a huge advantage for our people, for our government. When it comes to cost of ownership, if you have bought an electric scooter and I, after 3 years, tell you have to pay 30% of the amount for batteries, you'll say, man, I could have bought a brand new motorcycle in that much amount. So that is why, and as Professor Junjunwala said, let the market decide. So, we have been talking to several companies, not just in India, but across the world. And somehow battery swapping is working, friends. It's actually working. Whether you take Gogoro, who has done 200 million swaps, or you take Bounce, who has done just in Bangalore 200K swaps, it's working for them, because the headache of battery is taken away from an extremely cost-conscious customer. A two-wheeler customer, three-wheeler customer is extremely cost-conscious. If you take away that headache of battery, and if you can replace the battery in 10 seconds, which is faster than you refueling your IC engine vehicle, I think it's great. But when we talk about low-hanging fruits, we also have to talk about low-hanging caveats, right? They are equally important, if not more. So the low-hanging caveats here are, like, we already have the end-of-life vehicle policy, which came out recently. But what about the end-of-life battery? No, there's not much framework on that. As Professor,
actually, second life of battery rather than end of life of battery.
So second life, and after the second life, the end of life. So both are interrelated. For last 2.5 decades, secretly our cell phones, lithium-ion batteries might have been landing at the landfill. We don't even know, but we can't afford the EV batteries to land there. It will cause havoc. It will be a bigger monster than our air pollution, water table pollution. So we have to think about that. The second low-hanging caveat is safety. You must have read, General Motors in the US has released a communication to all the Bolt customers, the EV Bolt customers, to park their Bolt vehicles in open area and 50 feet away from other vehicles. So what does it to avoid a possible fire risk? So that brings us to a very important question. Is BMS important or BTMS more important? The BTMS element, the piece in EV, is equally important, if not more. If we are going through a transition, and if that transition pans out to be scary, dangerous, fire, explosions, then it gets nipped in the bud. That's extremely important. You would have seen that video which went viral, for some charging dock in Germany or somewhere in Europe. One car gets fire while charging. Within seconds, the second car. Within seconds, the third vehicle, the truck. So these things cause panic. So BTMS, the battery thermal management system, is extremely important. Now, talking about the fuel cells also, see, it's something like, what the government did. First push on EV. Suddenly they say, hey, you have to do BS6 also. Okay, don't forget that. It's like you're preparing for, an exam, and suddenly you say, hey, you have to be prepared for the second exam also. So FCEV, seems to be the second exam you have to all of a sudden prepare while you're preparing for the EV exam. Because, it's the resources, the company, the ecosystem, everything is converged on EV story. Well, suddenly you say, "नहीं, आपको अभी FCV भी करना है." So, it confuses everyone. So we need a proper strategy. We need a proper game plan. We can take baby steps, but a sudden change in focus will just confuse the industry. So, that's...
Professor Jhunjhunwala.
I agree with
Professor Jhunjhunwala, can I get your perspective on the new policy, both FAME as well as PLI, since you've been into the government trenches for long? What's the thinking?
No, I'm not part of government at all.
I know, not anymore.
I'm a professor at IIT Madras. We're driving lots and lots of ventures. Today, IIT Madras Incubation Cell has probably put in some 240 ventures. Our values are 11,000 crore rupees. That's a public value. But I think moving away to things like this, we do need a full-fledged going ahead with electric vehicles, especially as I pointed out for 2 and 3 wheelers. Just go full fast. Do R&D on fuel cells. Today, the cost of hydrogen works out to be, for vehicles, worked out to be several times more expensive than electric vehicles with lithium-ion battery. But this may change 7-8 years. At that time, remember that even when fuel cells come, the vehicles will remain electric. The only thing, the battery will be replaced by the hydrogen fuel. So I'm not so concerned about that, even if that change takes place. I think there will be a mix. My own feeling is, different people may have different opinions, but the large trucks, particularly long-distance trucks and long-distance buses may have a fuel cells. Otherwise, there will be a mixture of swapping and fixed batteries in small vehicles. And I think we should just go ahead and use it. The other thing that's happening is, today the technology is available in India to recover lithium, manganese, cobalt, nickel, and graphite from used batteries. Already from cell phone batteries, recovery is taking place between 90 to 95%. That is very important, as was pointed out by Anuj, and that we cannot have this waste lying all over. The Niti Aayog is coming with a policy that every battery has to be returned for recycling. And if it is returned for recycling, recycling will happen. I will say next 3 years, 4 years, our focus has to make every subsystem recycle battery. By this time, the latest PLI that is there of making cells in the country will happen, because there are now that bidding is going on. Lots of companies are very interested, and we'll pretty much have everything made in India. The battery design is very critical, as I pointed out, at 48-50 degrees centigrade. Motors also, I'll sort of say, temperature play havoc in the motors. Our rough roads don't make it easy. We have to really design motors for our stuff, and then we can use, and a whole lot of different vehicles. This morning I was seeing somebody from one of the IITs had designed a e-rickshaw they are manufacturing in Gurgaon, they told me, which is significantly solar powered. They have solar panels on the top, on the sides. I think it's amazing. We need this kind of startups. We don't know which startup will succeed. We need plenty of things like this. And Anuj should keep funding them, and we'll get there. Thank you.
I'm not sure Anuj wants to fund all these startups, but I'm actually going to get SVS back on. SVS, one of the most interesting things that I keep reading is on adoption. And the biggest challenge that I'm seeing on adoption is on the retail financing side for EVs. You're in this business, you're funding a bunch of these players, etc. With your experience, SVS, could you talk through on retail financing for EVs?
Yeah, I think that is very interesting. The retail, in fact, if you see the whole EV piece, the biggest broken piece is finance, right? Look at the cars. Let's say we have a very extreme case of e-rickshaw, but even if you look at the cars, right? In a car, you get easily 5 to 7 years of loan. But in EV, nobody is giving you more than 3-year loan. So suddenly your EMI, monthly EMIs change drastically if you buy electric car versus a petrol car. And I think where there the problem is that the financiers have no understanding of the battery, or rather not very willing to go there. But there's not much what you call support coming from the policy side also, and it's going in a lot of circles, right? So until unless there's a lot of policy push where you can have either a lower GST or subvention or something, right? Otherwise, this is not going to take off. And look at the e-rickshaw, which Professor Junior said that more than 1.5 million are running. And you know that of all these 1.5 million e-rickshaws are being sold at 50% interest rate, 50 per annum. It is not even Shylock. It is much worse than that, right? If we can bring down to 15, 14%, it will just escalate. The market will go crazy. And e-rickshaw is one of the most interesting product in the world. It is that product which solves pollution and poverty at the same time. One e-rickshaw takes one family out of poverty, and one e-rickshaw saves almost 4.5 ton of CO2. And this product and is being people are buying at 40 to 50% interest rate. And that's, I think, a huge challenge, because the problem is not only on the finance side. The problem is there's no refinancing, there's no asset securitization, and then there's challenges like you cannot resell electric vehicle batteries, rickshaws, because of subsidy and all. And all this has kindly killed the whole thing.
SVS, is that because of organized versus unorganized market?
See, the organized is not able to come because you are not able to securitize your asset. There is no bank which is buying a pool of 100 crore. So, like say, if I have an asset of 100 crore of e-rickshaw loan, there is no bank which is willing to buy that, because if I'm not able to securitize, how will I keep refinance my book, right? That is a huge challenge. So somewhere somebody has to allow this refinancing of this book. The asset securitization has to happen, right? Look at the Ather scooter. The interest rate is around 23, 24%. Why? It is being bought by the 700 plus CIBIL score people. Yeah. Why somebody is paying 23% interest rate on a sophisticated machine like Ather? Why not 8% or 9%? So I think until somebody solves this financing problem, EV adoption will keep on struggling. Everything works in favor. The cost, operation cost, every cost in favor. But the buyer is comparing EMI versus AMI. And AMI, they say 7-year versus loan versus 3-year loan. It's a very bad comparison, right? But I do not see 7 and 3 years. I see by my monthly outgo. Can I afford 12,000 rupee monthly payment, or can I afford 4,000? I will afford 4,000. So I will buy a Desire rather than buying a equally compelling another vehicle of that sort. So I think that is the biggest challenge in this market.
So I think there could be plenty many new players with a different risk-reward ratio towards at least retail financing of EVs.
No, we did that, and that is why it is not taking off, because of two issues. One is reselling of these EVs is kind of little jumbled up. The other problem is creating the subsidies are also creating a lot of scenarios. What is happening? Subsidy is making a new rickshaw cheaper than an old rickshaw.
Yeah.
Right. So who will take that risk of old rickshaw, right? So that is another problem. So there are multiple these challenges. Somebody has to think through all the things. There are so multiple.
Once you have an established business model for this, with a lot of these e-rickshaws coming into the organized domain, I understand some of these challenges will be taken care of. And I think that would be an inflection point towards hypergrowth.
Yeah. So I think what is happening now, so the loan, when these guys are raising loans, like say this fleet operators. So like the fleet operator, which is say serving to Amazon, Flipkart, so they are getting business loans. Now few companies have come in, but I think the credit is not available. I think if you look at this can be really a great green bond scenario. If you raise, say, $1 billion green bond only to do battery financing for swapping, charging, whatever, right? I think the market will just leapfrog, because at 6% interest rate, the market will just drastically change. And I think that's what we need.
If I can say something over here about the financing models. See, we have to get innovative, because, we have to see that the financiers, the lenders are just they are too risk averse. They don't understand the vehicle, the technology, the industry. So they're being very risk averse. Here, we need to experiment with innovative models, just the way EV leasing in fleet is changing things. If we can experiment with EV leasing to an individual. See, NBFCs have access to funds. They can run a KYC on any person anytime. So if an NBFC, an innovative one, well-funded, wants to explore this blue ocean strategy, you start leasing out to individuals, and you can give an operative lease, like a wet lease. You will say, I'll take care of the maintenance.
There is a problem. There is a problem of GST. We have done that. So we built a model which is totally tech-led. we had what you call, we control the vehicle. So we had a special IoT inside the battery, not in the vehicle. We had a daily payment collection. So every day your EDI gets connected, right? Because this guy on my income daily. So you collect EDI daily in the end of the day through UPI. There is no human intervention, no collection cost. So we have brought down the cost, but the challenge is much more there, right? The point is, I have 100 crore book. How do I refinance it? Right. So we have deployed tons of targets, and then the GST will come in.
So what I hear is the business model needs validation still, and once that happens, the obvious interest rates will come down. We only have 5 more minutes left. So Dr. Saran, I'm going to pull this back to you. We're hearing so many things on incubation cells, curriculum at IITs, ASDC, etc. You have so much global experience. What should we do? What could be advised to people on this panel, and maybe the government, if they're listening, if anybody from there is listening, as to how can they help us leapfrog in technology?
So very valid question. I think it's the Prime Minister's vision also, and for the entire country, Atmanirbharta, as far as EVs are concerned, not just for electric vehicles, in other sectors too. So skill development, I think, is an absolutely mandatory and a very important thing. I think skill development also not from a perspective of saying, well, we need to have more electronics engineers and we need to have more folks who know about industrial machines. But if it has to be EVs, then it has to be very centered around the things that are most needed. For example, batteries, like Professor Jhunjhunwala, alluded to, thermal management is an extremely important thing, right? So yes, we get a lot of people who understand, heat dissipation and those kinds of things, but the practical scenario of what it takes to do this in lithium ion, in battery packs, at different SOCs, VCUs taking shape in different geographies. I think these are, very involved problems. So I think starting from the universities and the various educational institutions, we will have to drive some of these kinds of things, including newer innovative designs of motors and those kinds of things. I think we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to EV adoption in this country. If you look at statistics, there used to be 1,800 odd companies in the US in 1923. Were 1,800 companies in the US in 1923 working on combustion engine technologies. We're talking about a few players, and between them, we're getting anxious and worked up. I think we haven't even started. I think this is a great time for us to start building on the knowledge bases that we have, wonderful knowledge bases, and start focusing on specific elements, including drivers, workshops, technicians. Each of these will need to change a little bit, I think, to ensure that, EVs become successful in the long run. Professor Jhunjhunwala, you want to add something?
Can I just add a few things? If this is Pan IIT Forum, so I think I can make things say things very boldly. Very boldly, Professor. I think the biggest obstacle to electric vehicle industry in India has been the established auto industry in the country. Frankly speaking, they have not wanted it, and they have used their influence, and they have a whole lot of influence on the government to largely sabotage the policies.
I totally agree.
I'm making that statement. Largely sabotage. Even now, when the issues are getting into this standard, that standard, I think the companies which have no interest for next 3 years to get into electric vehicle often get in and then make statements. And I know a government listens to them. Well, they are the large auto industry. And the ones which are going to really make things work are the new companies that are coming up, startups. They are very innovative. By and large, we have played through that game for last 3-4 years. Today, by and large, things have opened up with fame, without fame, whole thing will start working. And I think when I'm seeing all of you, Salesh, Amitabh, Anuj, ready to drive things, Anuj ready to raise money, I think this will happen. I once again invite you, anyone who wants to visit, come to IIT Madras Research Park. More, one can go to other places also. But that's one place you see so much of electric vehicle. 3 days back, Sridhar Vembu landed up there. All of us know about Sridhar Vembu. And he saw the whole thing and he says, my complete mind frame had changed. Manufacturing in India has to happen, and looks like we are masters of technology. We have to beat everybody in technology, whether it is again motors, controllers, batteries, chargers, and every single thing. And we have to make everything in India. That is the way to go about. Plenty of new vehicles will come. I think the established industry, either it has to work with the startups or they will fade away. Sorry.
Professor, I have one last question for you, and I think I can take the liberty with you because of our, and you can give a yes/no answer. In the next 5 years, will we have a uniform national policy on EVs taxation and incentive? I mean, do you see us going there?
I think policies are going to go ups and downs. It's a lobbying which makes the policing work. Sorry, I've worked. I even came to Delhi for 20 months.
I know.
With my good friend Piyush Goyal, simply to make a difference. And I saw how difficult it is. It's lobbying. And they will. So I don't think it is a technical and business are that should be the decision making rather than something else. So I know I'm not very hopeful, but you have to work with the policy. I mean, one of my ex-director and Professor P.V. Indras and everybody knows, he sort of says, well, they are there. It is up to you who has to manage the environment. Environment is there. We have to learn and manage the environment. And with or without all these policies, we'll win. Electric vehicle will win in India. And will win because the young companies and startups will make it win.
Absolutely.
Very strong.
That's all I have to say. Others can say more. I can't do what I'm saying.
No, Professor, thank you so much. I mean, we're out of time, but I'm going to end it at that note to say that, electric vehicles will win in India. I'm getting lots of questions. What will happen to companies when companies like Tesla come up to India? Should they be given up? I'll leave all those questions out because we've kind of run out of time for today. But Professor, I'm going to take up on your offer of visiting you at the incubation center at ITM and also for the dosa over there, the dosai over there. So expect me for our lunch invitation at the incubation center. And for everybody who hasn't been there, it's a great opportunity to go and learn a lot more, especially on thermal management systems, on different fuel cell technology, etc. But Anuj, hopefully next time you're doing a big ticket deal, I can do the diligence for you on that. Help you get your diligence.
Surely. And I would just like to say, I would like to resonate what Professor Jhunjhunwala has said. At the end of the day, it is innovation which shall win, because these kind of things happen once in a century where, the counter gets reset. There might be many, many big organizations, on one side, but on the other side, you have startups, you have innovators. What Netflix did to broadcasters, as simple as that, So innovation shall surely win because the country has to win, period.
Thank you.
SVS, anything from your perspective? Do you think we'll win? What do we need to do? One last word from you.
I think I will add to what Anuj and Professor has said. Innovation always precedes policy, right? And that's what will happen again. Innovation will always run. Policy always keep on happening. We have seen in e-commerce, we'll see here also.
Dr. Saran, are we innovative enough?
We're hugely innovative and we will continue this trend. Absolutely. India is a country of entrepreneurs.
On that bright road and on Professor saying EV will win in India, I'm gonna call this. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all, 4 of you, for spending this half an hour, 45 minutes together. It was insightful for me. I learned a bit. I hope other people got an opportunity to absorb some of this. And fingers crossed. Let's see if we can make sure that we get to a position where India can lead in this rather than just follow it. So Thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you, Pan IIT. Cheers. Thank you.